Doing a webinar with easyDITA and precision content. So it's going to be my pleasure to introduce Rob to you in just a minute. But before we do that, I'm just going to take a second to talk to you about who I am and what easyDITA is, and then we'll get to Rob with precision content. My name is Patrick Bozick. I'm one of the founding partners of Dorsic LLC. We're the company that makes easyDITA. We've been around for quite a while now. Mostly what we do is focus on improving authoring process, content creation, and generally looking at the entire information supply chain for organizations from one technical writer or author up to hundreds of authors, content contributors, and reviewers. I've been in this industry pretty much my entire career, and I've focused on having a really strong understanding of XML, the semantics that go into it, process, DITA, and all the other things that make for a healthy content environment inside of organizations. As an organization, we've been established for a little over 10 years now. We are native to Rochester, New York, which is upstate near the Great Lakes, if you guys are, if anyone's familiar with that location. We're a small privately held organization, and we have customers across a wide range of industries. easyDITA is one tool for everything you need for content development. You are able to author, manage, and publish right from easyDITA. And we'll be taking a little bit of a look at that today. But now I'd like to introduce to you Rob Hanna.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you all for joining us today. So a little bit about who I am. I'm president of Precision Content Authoring Solutions. I've been in content management and structured authoring for most of my career as a technical communicator and information architect. I teach metadata and controlled vocabularies at the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. Our company, Precision Content Authoring, was established back in 2013, and we have a number of clients across the globe where we've helped them to develop their content strategies, working with structured content, DITA XML, and of course precision content, our proprietary DITA specialization and content authoring methodologies. You can learn more about what we do at precisioncontent.com. So we are your content transformation specialists, and over the next little while I'll describe to you exactly what we mean by content transformation and how we help companies such as yours move from unstructured content or from other structured content that maybe isn't working as well for you into a robust structured authoring framework and sets of methodologies. So one of the things that we encounter many times through our engagement with customers is that when a company recognizes that they have a problem with their content, that they can't find what they're looking for, that they can't get at the right version of information, or they can't trust the information that they do find, the first thing that they do is they pick up the phone and they contact their IT department and they say, please, get me a new tool. Get me a tool that's going to solve my problems. And of course, our position is it's not the technology. If it's a content problem, that your content problems require content solutions. We have to look at your content, not just how it's set up, what technology we're using, but also how that content is written. And companies need to stop or slow down in throwing new technology at their content problems and really look at the root cause of what's causing their problems. So that's where we come in. We have a overarching content strategy that looks at information and your information set from a very broad perspective, starting with looking at your precision content strategy, the utility of information. So the content must be in a form that's useful. How useful is your information as PDF documents or Word documents or WordPerfect documents or WordStar documents that happen to be sitting on your network drives, lost and forgotten about? how's your HTML content? Is your HTML content meeting your requirements or your content on SharePoint? What are your minimum requirements for format of your information so that you can readily publish your content to multiple channels, easily localize your content, easily share and manage your content at a much more granular level? This is all about the form of content. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how, for instance, DITA XML is a very useful format for content, but it's only a piece of the picture. The next piece, of course, is the maintainability. How maintainable is your content lifecycle currently with the tools that you're using, with the processes that you have, and the sort of level of engagement of information governance that you have for maintaining your content. So coming in and introducing new tools, new formats is going to break down over time if there isn't processes around being able to maintain that content sufficiently. So another very big piece of the pie is the maintainability piece. So between utility and maintainability, we're talking quite a bit of technology on this side. So technology is important, but it's not the whole picture. The last piece is usability. So the content has to be written to suit the function so it can be easily used and repurposed. And we'll talk more about this in just a moment, but being able to write well, write good documents and technical manuals is one thing, but being able to write for topic-based authoring, for broad-based collaboration, and for sensible, logical reuse of content where it makes sense to reuse content rather than recreate or regenerate or manage multiple versions, iterations of content, is all based around how you're able to write and the methodologies and content standards that you adopt in writing that content. So we look at the whole picture, the technology, the methods, the process to help develop your content strategy, develop a roadmap, and then go from soup to nuts, from transformation through to publishing and distribution. So through our journey, we've been looking at finding balance. So when we talk about form, of course, I've talked about DITA XML, or I mentioned it earlier, and how DITA XML is a very good solution for not just technical publications, but many parts of an organization to help them create content that has legs. It's future-proofed and can serve the function that it needs to serve within the organization. So DITA XML is an agnostic structured framework for technical communication, an open standard, and extensible across industries. So it's not limited to any one industry or purpose. But it lacks a consistent, robust authoring methodology. All right, so there is a methodology implied through the structures within DITA, but it's not well structured, it's not well put out there so that we have a methodology to follow. So I've worked on many DITA implementations, and with all the best technology, tools, planning, architecture, it all falls apart if we don't know how to write for it effectively. So on the side of structured authoring, outside of DITA XML, I've immersed myself in the information mapping world to understand how to better write for how people think about information. And of course, information mapping is an agnostic structured authoring methodology. It's been around for over 40 years and implemented in businesses around the globe. And probably most importantly, it's teachable. It's trainable to any audience or practitioner. So knowledge workers in almost any industry can be taught and are using the information mapping methods for writing their business documents. But information mapping lacks a modern technology delivery framework. It's not easy to collaborate, and any sort of enterprise level or multi-channel publishing is really not built with the tool set around information mapping. So that's where we brought in our precision content solution, and we developed our methods through adaptation of the methods taught by Information Mapping International, really pared them down to adapt to collaboration within the enterprise, working with topics, and specifically working with topic XML, topic-based XML. Now, we're not affiliated in any way with Information Mapping International, and we're definitely not endorsed by them. So we are, in fact, a competing product with the Information Mapping Standard. Our precision content framework also requires some modifications on the DITA side. So it involves specialization and constraints that really tighten up DITA and apply it to our authoring methodology using vocabularies that are easily understood with our writing methodology. So to go in further into our methodology and understand what it's all about, we start with a breakdown of two different types of information that we encounter within the enterprise: language arts for personal response versus language arts for information. Now, as writers, we often, we've often started on the language arts for personal response side. This is how we learn how to write in school, in a narrative style, where we build up to a conclusion with our content. It's information or writing that's intended to be read. It's very writer-driven, of course. On the other side, we have language arts for information, which is really the where, as technical writers, we live on a day-to-day basis of writing information that's not intended to be read, but instead it's intended to be used. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. So when we go into look at language arts for information, something typical like IKEA instructions very well tell you the steps that are needed to take in order to complete a task, whether they're typically highly visual, but of course have text as well. But then when we move into language arts for personal response, if we were to try to apply these same sort of principles around creating content, but we use this language arts for personal response, we create content that is often very, very well written, but not very utilitarian. So while we've got some beautiful text, it's well written, I can't use it to perform the tasks that I need to use. So this is language arts for personal response. And how I like to characterize the difference with business documents is when we look at the job application. Now, when you apply for a job, typically there are two key documents that you submit when you're applying for a job: your cover letter and your resume. Now, your cover letter is intended for personal response. You want to interact directly with the hiring manager, and you want to compel that hiring manager to come to have you in to interview you for that particular job. So there's a lot of information in your cover letter that's also in your resume, but it's got a different purpose. It has a very different format in how it's written and how it's structured. And of course, your resume is very highly structured, a very recognizable structure that HR departments will often scan into a database, parse apart so that they can easily search across many different applicants to find applicants with specific skills or education or experience, so that they can find and manage large pools of applicants for a company. And of course, that resume is not intended for a single reader. It's intended for a much broader audience and much broader application. So when we talk about content, let's start with a few definitions first of all. So we start with data. Data within the organization, a single point of information that we manage within our enterprise. As we aggregate that information, we add additional context to it to come up with information. Of course, this is what we work with every day, information within our information systems within our organization. But this isn't the information that we present to our clients or our consumers of this information. We need to take this information, interpret it, and present it in such a way that it can be easily consumed by our intended audiences. This is where, of course, content comes into play. So you have the flow of data to information to content. And of course, once we put that content out there, consumers of that information can take that content, apply their own personal experience to that to affect knowledge from that content. So this is really the whole flow of information and how we specialize in helping to take that information, put it into content so that others can impart knowledge on that content. So with precision content, we like to think of this as software for the brain, a new way of thinking about content. It really is based a lot on scientific principles around human factors engineering, cognitive psychology, and instructional design. Key to it is the whole notion of typing and classification of information. So with precision content, we of course start with the DITA archetypes of concept, reference, and task. But we add on 2 more information types into that, which are principle and process, to complete the picture for information types for any enterprise type of structured information for information. So let's have a look at what we mean by information types. We start with a flight safety briefing as an example, where we might have a cabin crew member give us a flight safety briefing where they will go through many different types of information in presenting that to our passengers. So we start with, for instance, reference type information. We will be flying at an altitude of 60,000 feet. This is the majority of information that we create on a daily basis as technical communicators. Reference, or very passive information, presenting the facts to the reader. Next, we have principle-based information. This is information that's used to inform users about what to do, or especially what not to do in any given situation. We have task-based information, the procedures. We have process that explains how things work, how a process within an organization, how people work together for a process, or even how pieces of machine may work together to an end result. So process, and then finally conceptual information, where we need to teach people the definitions, build a solid mental picture around what something is so that they can apply it generally to other instances where they encounter these types of concepts. So conceptual information being one of the in fact, least used types of information in technical communication, but a very important type of information nonetheless. So with these types of information, we type, of course, our topics, but what we also do is we type the blocks within topics. And each one of these blocks then go into creating larger topics and information products. And because they're all standardized and we've written them in a very structured way and very consistently, we can easily reconfigure that information to create other types of information very easily. Part of the success of our precision content approach is the architectural modularity of precision content. So with our writing methodologies, we can apply it to working with the base, just the base DITA specification. So if there are technology limitations that prevent us from adding additional layers onto your content, we can still work with just the basic DITA specification. Of course, we can add on top of that any one or any number of the existing OASIS DITA domains. Sitting on top of that in our typical types of deployment are our precision content modules, where we introduce new elements and even new topic types, as I mentioned, that allow us to apply our writing methodology. And finally, where the client has specific needs for that content, where we need to repurpose or reuse that content in other very specific applications, we can add on top of all of this client specialization modules that have that client-specific vocabulary and tag set that are needed for maintaining their publications.
So Rob, I want to
yes.
jump in here and ask you a question real quick. Just to clarify, what you've done here is you've taken the well-accepted technology that is DITA, and you've taken and put the philosophies of precision content, and you've kind of structured them into a way that it'll flow together with DITA and build on top of it. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So when we designed this, we were very aware of technological limitations within environments that can't support specialization or don't want to support specialization for any number of different reasons. So we need to be able to apply it without any modifications to DITA in some circumstances. But of course, as we add these various layers, we make it easier for authors to write more consistent content. So we provide additional guidance to authors, and in particular with client specializations, we make it easier for casual contributors to contribute content because we're putting this in front of them structures that they understand within their domains. So the next piece of the architecture are the constraints. So with the constraints, we simplify the structure of basic DITA by eliminating, right now we are eliminating 77 elements from the base specification. We've cut out the unnecessary domains. We've simplified the element structures. So there are fewer combinations of elements that are possible within this structure. And of course, introduced new controlled vocabularies for element attributes, making it easier to assign attributes or values to content, and of course, making it more consistent. So with this, with DITA, what we've done is we've looked at the existing structures of concept, task, and reference, and they fit very well into our writing methodology for separating these different types of information. So with this, all topics are authored using blocks and titles, each allowing also new subblocks within blocks to provide a little bit more depth into the content. And then, of course, as I'd mentioned earlier, we type every block of content within our topics. And with each information type, we have writing rules. How do we write for these different information types that we use the DITA structures in our position content structures to help guide the author. But DITA was, of course, designed by IBM to support product development, hardware, software development, and to support those products for their audiences. So it doesn't represent all of the types of information, certainly, that we see within the enterprise. So to complete the picture, we've introduced two new topic types. The process information type or topic type, which has been specialized from task, but it introduces concepts such as stages, actors, and actions. On the principal side, on the principal topic type, we've specialized this from topic. And here we introduce structures around principal statements, applicability, outcome, and resolution, which tie in very nicely to the semantics that are currently being developed within OASIS. And tie in nicely to even to the lightweight DITA specification that's currently under development. So with this, I think I'd like to pause for a moment and from the slide deck, and we'll go in and start having a look at exactly how this tool works and how easyDITA has made it possible for us to easily deliver these solutions to our clients. So this is the next gen easyDITA tool. And what we're looking at right now is the dashboard that's developed and available now in the next gen product, where we can easily see quite a bit of information about our projects and the status of information within our environment. So some really interesting features here. We have, for instance, an inbox, which tracks assignments and comments that have been raised throughout the authoring project. We can, of course, look at various products that we set up within the authoring environment and track workflow assignments, making it easy for us to collaborate more effectively within our organization. And then, of course, some of the other really interesting pieces we've got are a tool for designing and implementing complex taxonomic structures for our content, for our metadata, and of course an interface for being able to assign specific controlled vocabularies to that metadata within our authoring environment. So when we go through to look at a product through the dashboard, we get quite a bit of information here. So we can see exactly how much content is in the repository, what state it's in, and what types of information we're working with. And then we can set up specific documents within this project and within multiple projects where we can monitor the progress. So when we go to look at from here, we can view the document. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Having technology problem with the browser. Pardon me. All right. Okay, here we go. So from here we can see a lot of information about the topic. So first of all, we have this very useful view of the content where we can preview the content all in line. So we can see the entire publication and as it's been stitched together. Reviewers of this content can also come into the content and they can easily add comments to the content as we go and see more specific information about any given topic within this repository. So we can look at revisions. We can see links for our documents. So with this particular map, there's quite a bit of topics in here. Properties, assignments on the publication, and of course we can also publish the content as well. Let's go in and start having a look at some of the content. So those of you who have used easyDITA before, this is a new view of a lot more information about the topics within the repository, where we can see not just the files, but also the titles, types, and status of the information within the repository. We have the ability to see multiple views on the content as well. So I can star or assign certain topics as favorites, and then I can also assign other types of properties in here that allow us to see content based on any number of different filterable attributes, including our custom taxonomic values that we've created within the repository. So here we're looking at quite a bit of content, and from in here I can of course sort by date and by status. I can preview a topic, check out its properties and any assignments for that content, and of course I can edit the content. So this is going to be a little bit more familiar to you. This is our authoring interface where we can easily update and create new content. Let's actually, I wanted to start from here. So we'll bring up this particular topic here. And so what we're looking at here is our custom precision content interface, where we have specific controls for being able to apply and add content. We can see each block of information has a specific icon assigned with it, which indicates what type of information that particular block of content is structured around. And then, of course, with content such as process, we have a very full set of semantics to help organize this content and guide the author in creating this content.
Hey, Rob, I want to just jump in here and call it one of the things that I love about this. So one of the things we're seeing here is we're seeing these really nicely separated blocks inside of the content. And this is all following the general underlying principles of DITA content. So, you know, what's happened is you've taken that research and philosophy from the information mapping, and through the work of precision content, you've mapped that into DITA. So we're really seeing this really nice integration of those two things. So for groups that are looking at a structured environment that are not necessarily full-time technical authors, this just creates such a simple, blocked out, consistent methodology for laying content into structure. And I think that's something that's really interesting that you guys have done. So just calling these things out and just really showing where these things are separated, I think would be something to spend a little more time on right now.
Sure, absolutely. So let's start by having a look at a new topic type. So here we have a very generic set of templates we've created. But when I go into, for instance, create a procedure, we can see that we get a very simple template in which to start authoring, where we do have a lot of guidance on how to set this content up. So I can add context to the content. I can go in and I can start authoring content steps, and easily keep adding on steps. Of course, I can add in information blocks in here where and then easily add even bulleted lists in here, make this a bullet. I can, from here, add in, and you'll notice that we're not showing tag names, but the full descriptive name of the elements to be able to work with. So and just hitting enter, I can continue on with the list. So it's very intuitive interface without having your tags getting into the way of that content. It has a real-time validation of the content so that we can correct things as we go, and add any number of different blocks into the content as well. So you can see this is very easy to work with. I can set this up and change the attributes easily. So again, a very clean interface for here. Now, one of the things that we have introduced through here as well is concepts around structured tables for processes and procedures. So I can add an info block in here. And then from in here, through our custom toolbar, I can go in and add, for instance, an if-then table. So this is a very semantically rich table that tells us how to perform certain tasks, particularly tasks that that can get rather complex, where there are multiple conditions. So blue, and wear sunglasses. All right, I can even go into here and I can add additional considerations or additional pieces of information, such as I can add in an and column or another. So we'll just put. Hold on, I'm not in the right spot here. Sorry, and we'll say 15 degrees. Now I might have another condition where the sky is blue, and I want to add another and below there.
So while you're typing away here, Rob, I just want to jump in. One of the things that I love about what you're showing here is that we're building out these really powerful semantics. And even if these tables aren't displayed exactly like this in our output, what we do know from the output's perspective is that we now have a decision tree here. And what a lot of people have seen in different applications for support or for allowing someone to do self-service or any of those types of things is that they come down to these types of decision trees. And what we're doing is we're giving somebody an interface where they're able to do that simply. They can read it in the authoring interface. They don't have to understand the underlying structure, and they still get the ability for downstream processes to generate them as easy to read tables in PDF or interactive interfaces in other applications.
Even creating SVG images of decision trees or flow diagrams is all part of what we can get out of these semantically structured if then when then types of tables or decision tree type tables.
Yeah.
So we get past the limitations. We get past the limitations of the standard DITA model or table models within DITA, which are tables, and we look at some of the more semantically structured tables in DITA and how we leverage that to develop a unique model around our decision tree model here. So, so this is very easy to author some of these more complex tables without having to understand the underlying markup, which is significantly rich and not just the nondescript table type of structure. So this is a look at what our procedure looks like. We also have very rich types of content around, of course, principal type of information. Create a new principal topic. Where we can create some, again, from the semantics of the content, we have, for instance, our statements and where we express the policies or guidelines for that content. So let's go back and have a look at now at a DITA map of content within our repository. So we'll go back and we'll have a look at, go into our content specification. From here, I can filter out the different types of content. I want to get to the map. And from here, I can go in. And from here, I can see the structure of the map over on the left-hand side. And of course, from here, I can preview the content. I can go in directly and edit these topics directly within the within this interface from the map. Again, making it easy to locate and work with content within the repository. So, Patrick, anything else that you think that folks might like to see in our position content interface here?
So I think the biggest thing to take away from this is that there is a use case for generic DITA. It really, as you said before, was really built for a technical communications background. When you get outside of a pure technical communications environment, this can have a lot of benefit because it breaks down some of the structures that a technical communications department will build into their style guide into things which are kind of more out of the box. And because it is applying that readability type research based on information mapping, it comes with some of the benefits that you're looking for out of structure for the end user right out of the box. It's just coming with the application of it. So, I don't think that this is, I don't think anybody should walk away from here thinking that this is a replacement for DITA, but I think that for certain groups, it's something we should definitely understand it has a lot of benefits outside of pure DITA. So, and it's really nice to have different specializations, different different types surrounding a DITA environment for different applications. And I think this is a really interesting example of that. So from an authoring perspective, I think we've shown most of those things. I think we've seen the blocks, we've seen the typing. I think we've seen how easy it is to incorporate this into a publication, build a table of contents, and keep these things, very logically separated, very consistent, which is what gives you all of those benefits downstream from publishing, that be that web, books, PDF, whatever they may be, for a team that just really wants to have that type of consistency. So I think, this has been a good overview of those things.
Great, thank you. Yes. So we go back, we just have a few more slides and then we'll be able to get into some questions. So looking at the methodology and the technology, combining the two and going through the heavy levels of adaptation and specialization, we've been able to create content that's well structured, of course, for the human brain to help them to better understand, use, and retain that information. But at the same time, we're also helping to enable technology to integrate search, process, and of course facilitate reuse of that content as well. So really meeting these two fundamental sets of needs by keeping consistent structures of information, not just at the topic level, but down to the block level within the content. So looking more into the writing methodology and what sort of benefits it brings, I like to go to one of the very early projects that we worked on was with the American College of Surgeons, and they had a very unique situation with their content. They had a cancer staging manual that had been developed over the course of 30 years by physicians and oncologists, surgeons from around the globe, really leading practitioners and thought leaders in cancer research. Assembling this 800-page document with Word documents and really awkward levels of collaboration. There was a very long publishing cycle to update the document. So they only ever did it every 5 to 7 years. And it would take several years of these volunteer time of these physicians putting this information together. And of course, these physicians are very well versed in writing. They're a big part of their career is, of course, writing journal articles. So they do know how to write, and they do know how to write well, but they don't know how to write for the particular function of this particular information. So what they had here is they had a challenge where they needed to get the content out of the cancer staging manual and share it with other electronic forms so that electronic health records could bring in this information, or cancer staging calculators could reuse this information as well. So creating a logical structure that could be used in very different, unique circumstances. So they came to me because I was a DITA expert and I could help them get their content into DITA. But of course, there was a problem with the content itself. So we could, of course, whack it into DITA. That wouldn't be difficult. Anybody can take this content, as obtuse as it might be, and apply DITA tags to it. But of course, it wouldn't produce the types of results that they were hoping to get out of this. So looking at this content, applying precision content methods to it, we can easily identify areas where there are problems with the content. So first of all, we have to go in and understand what's wrong with this content that's causing so many problems with it, and how can we correct it. So then we look at this, and then we work with subject matter experts to fix the inconsistencies, fix the areas that are ambiguous, and then come up with a new format presentation of that information. So we get something that looks more like this, which is, as you can probably tell, a little easier to use within the clinic, because not only doctors are using this, of course, there are nurses and registrars and administrators that also need to be able to interpret the same information. So they need something that's easier to read than a journal article. And just by running this content through Microsoft Word and getting some quick stats out of it, we can easily see some of the improvements that we've made on this content to make it easier to use. So as I mentioned, a big part of what we do is content transformation. And this isn't simply a conversion to DITA. This is a tear down and rewrite of information from the ground up, working with subject matter experts. Not something that we do with an entire collection of content. It's not something that's done overnight, but by identifying content with specific needs, high value content, we can come in and begin a transformation within your organization to take your content from unstructured to structured content in a way that we can easily turn the keys over to you, and you can then go on to maintain the system and continue to grow the system with new content over the years to come. So with that, we're ready to open this up to questions that any of you may have.
So we've got a question here. How is content reused in a different type of document?
Very good question. So the standard blocks that we have in all of the types of content are consistent across all of the various information types. So we can take a block of information that is a process block and reuse it in other types of topics, or we can put a concept or a fact into a process or a procedure. So it does. These structures are movable to a great extent. Some of the structures that are, of course, derived from the DITA standard, such as steps or even its derivative stages, they can only exist within a task or a process type of document. But we have other different presentation modes and other ways of writing processes and procedures that are a simpler form that can exist as blocks that move between different information types. So when we create a type of topic, it's not homogeneous, it's not all concept, it's not all reference. It's typically a mix of different types of blocks within a single topic. So you might have seen, for instance, in a task, of course, if you're familiar with the DITA specification, you've got context and prereq, which are built in or baked into the task type template, where a prereq is what we would call a principle and a context is what we would call a reference. So these exist only within that template, but that type of information exists just about anywhere. So it's very portable, these blocks of information across all the different types. I hope that answers the question.
Hey, that was pretty thorough. Thanks, Rob. We've got another question that's come in. What are the different output formats that we can expect to see when we're creating this kind of information?
Well, that's an excellent question. So we have a couple of very specialized types of output. Of course, we can output to any of the DITA Open Toolkit types of transforms. Because the DITA Open Toolkit, of course, supports specialization very well. But some of the specialized publishing types of output that we're working on or that we've created, one is through a tool developed by Tengwar Solutions called DITA Imprint, which we can use to publish our content to Microsoft Word, PDF, and even open office type documents. And using the DITA Imprint interface and product, we can easily style that content right within Open Office, changing fonts and page sizes and number of different things within any sort of publishing template. So we don't have to go through the great expense of modifying more complex XSLFO style sheets, for instance. So that's one of the types of output that we've created and is supported in our environment. The other type is we are publishing to a SharePoint knowledge base. So we're taking our content and we've got a transform that will integrate this content very, very well into a native SharePoint knowledge base type of format where the content is filterable and searchable on any number of different attributes in the content that we can pass directly from the DITA XML directly to the publishing engine, directly to SharePoint, so that it can create a very personalizable experience on a very large collection of topics.
Okay. Got a couple more questions that come in. I'm actually going to grab the next one. So it says, is this a set of custom DTDs and custom easyDITA interface? So for those of you who are DITA experts, as I know the individual who asked this is, yeah, that's basically what it is. So you have DTDs, which are specializations. So they work essentially the same way as any other specialization. And then there is some customization to the easyDITA interface, which, again, is something that's very common for easyDITA customers, is to have some specialization, configuration to the easyDITA authoring UI with or without specialization. And these have been done to handle these custom DTDs. So we have another question here. So it says, how easy is it to introduce inline style guides? And is this something that can be done before go live, and how much effort is required to do this? If you don't mind, I'm going to grab this one too, Rob.
Sure. Yeah.
So easyDITA has tooltip functionality, which can actually be dropped into different elements in a predictable way. And that can be interacted with the template system. So what you'll generally end up seeing there is little boxes that will guide the user and describe different pieces of what they should do. You can even take the authoring interface a little bit further, and you can have static text that fits above or below or on the side of one of these blocks that Rob was showing earlier that would give the user some very generic advice. And when you do this, it's pretty common that authors aren't going to want to see this forever. So most of the time we'll offer a button that allows these to be disabled so they don't have to look at them anymore. The next question we have is, how is localization handled? So this is kind of a software question, so I'm going to keep stepping on your toes.
Absolutely.
So localization is handled by either exporting the raw DITA files and having them sent to a translation provider, exporting the DITA as a compiled XLIF, which is a translation interchange format, and having that sent to a localization provider. Or finally, we are going to be announcing a integration with a pretty well-known set of translation tools within the next couple of months here. So it's kind of a stay tuned, a little promotion for a webinar that we'll be doing in the near future, which would allow native functionality for bringing up the content into a set of localization tools, Workbench, XML, translation memory technology. So the notion is that it's all handled through the system, it's tracked, it keeps it in line, and the publishing system can be set up to handle any number of different locales to run those through all the same pipelines that you're using with your source content. So we've got customers who've got 30 and 40 languages in easyDITA, and it's a very good, consistent process. All right, well, we're getting towards the top of our hour, so if there's no other questions, I think we're going to let everybody have a couple minutes back before we we get on with our next set of meetings and to-dos today. So if there's no last minute questions, we're just going to wrap up. And I'm going to say thank you to Rob. It was great having you. I really appreciate the in-depth explanation of precision content and how it relates to DITA and easyDITA. And thank you for everybody for attending today. This was a really great webinar. So looking forward to speaking to many of you in the very near future. And thanks again, Rob.